Hey guys, today we're diving into a part of parenting that most people avoid. The awkward moment when your kid sees someone on the street, dirty clothes, plastic bag of belongings, maybe mumbling to themselves, and tugs your sleeve to ask, "Why is that man sleeping there?" You freeze, right? Because what do you say? What version of the truth can a child handle? Let's become the best single daddy we can be. I used to rush past those moments. Pretend I didn't hear. Distract him with a snack or a joke. Not because I didn't care, but because I didn't know how to answer. I didn't want to lie, but I also didn't want to open up the ugly parts of the world too early. And then came that one Saturday. We were walking to the library. Bright morning. He had his little backpack on, filled with crayons even though I told him we weren't going to draw. And then we passed the man who sleeps under the bridge near the park. He was awake this time. Sitting up, rubbing his hands together like they were sore. My son saw him, slowed down, and said, "Is that man cold? Can we give him something?" I didn't say anything. I just kept walking. Gave one of those parent grunts, come on," and tugged his hand a little faster. I think I even smiled, like nothing was wrong. But inside, I felt like a coward. It stayed with me all day. The silence. The look on my son's face when I brushed it off. Because I wasn't just ignoring the man under the bridge. I was teaching my kid, without even knowing it, that some people don't matter. That we don't stop for them. That kindness has limits. I hated that. And here's the truth most parents don't talk about. Your child learns more from what you ignore than from what you explain. When you rush past someone in need, your kid learns it's okay to do the same. When you cross the street to avoid eye contact, your child thinks that's normal. That some people deserve our attention and others don't. All this time, I thought teaching kindness was about saying please and thank you, about sharing toys and not hitting their sibling. But the deeper kind of kindness, the kind that stays in their bones, is built in the quiet, unplanned moments, like what they see you do when no one else is watching, especially when the person in front of you has nothing to offer back. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking, what if I just stopped for a second? Just acknowledge that man. Or better, answered my son's question with honesty, even if I didn't have all the answers. So the next morning, I changed the script. We walked the same way, past the same bridge. The man was still there, now asleep with a coat over his head. My son looked at me again. And this time I said, "Yes, buddy. He probably is cold. And no, we can't fix everything. But we can care." We left a pair of gloves next to his backpack. My son didn't say anything. He just nodded. And I realized that was enough. You don't need to stage some grand moment of charity. You don't need to perform. You just need to model decency. The kind that doesn't ask for attention or reward. The kind that sees people, not problems. Later that week, he asked if we could bring an extra sandwich next time. Not because I told him to, but because, in his words, everyone should get a lunch, right? That sentence hit harder than anything I could have taught him in a lecture. Because when your kid sees you treat someone with dignity, even someone struggling, they internalize that as truth. It becomes the baseline, not the exception. But you know what's even more powerful? When you show them that everyone is worth seeing, even the ones other people avoid. There's this lie that good parenting is about protection, keeping your kid from seeing the hard stuff. But I've learned it's not about sheltering, it's about translating, giving them the words to process what they already sense. Because kids aren't blind. They notice everything. The man on the bench, the woman talking to herself, the tension in your voice when you pull them away. So next time it happens, and it will, try something different. Don't shush them. Don't sugarcoat. Just sit in the discomfort for a second. Say something simple like, "Some people don't have homes. And it's really hard. We can't fix it, but we can care." That one line does more than silence or avoidance ever could. It shows your child that hard things don't have to be hidden. That empathy is an everyday muscle. And that kindness isn't a performance, it's a practice. I'm not perfect. There are still days I flinch. Still moments I fail to show up the way I want to. But now I try to return to one simple question. What story am I teaching my kid about people who have nothing? Because the answer to that question shapes who they become. Not just in how they treat strangers, but in how they treat classmates who don't fit in, or friends who are going through something hard, or themselves when they feel broken. So if you want your kid to grow up kind, start with the people we're most tempted to look away from. Because how they see the man on the sidewalk, that's how they'll learn to see the world. The funny thing is, kids don't naturally judge. They observe. They mirror. And most of all, they ask questions, sometimes hard ones. What happened to him? Does he have a mom? Why doesn't he go home? It's uncomfortable. I get it. Your instinct is to hush them, to say, don't be rude, or I'll explain later. But here's the truth no one tells you. That moment, right there on the sidewalk, grocery bags in hand, your kid staring wide-eyed at a stranger on the ground, is a sacred opportunity. Because they're not judging. They're trying to understand. And your answer will shape their understanding of people forever. So when your kid asks, answer. Be honest. Be gentle. Be real. Say, not everyone has what we have. That man might be going through something really tough right now. Say, I don't know everything about his story, but I know he's still a person. And he matters. Then ask your child, how do you feel when you see someone like that? What do you think we should do? You'd be amazed by what they say. Sometimes they'll come up with the simplest, most profound answers. Let's give him water. Or, can I say hi? One time my son said, maybe he just needs someone to smile at him today. I swear, in that moment, I felt like I was the student and he was the teacher. But here's the other side of it, something I wasn't ready for. Kindness comes with questions. And questions come with weight. One evening, my son asked me, Daddy, could we ever be homeless? I froze. That question gutted me. I wanted to lie. I wanted to say, never, buddy. That could never happen to us. But I couldn't. Because I'd lost my job once. I lived paycheck to paycheck. I'd sat awake some nights, counting bills, wondering what I could sell. I knew how close the edge was. So I told him the truth. I said, we had hard times before. And we might again. But I'll always do everything I can to take care of us. Then I added something I hadn't planned. And even if we ever did lose everything, we'd still have each other. And that matters more than anything. He nodded and hugged me. Not because he was scared, but because kids respond to honesty with love. They don't need perfect. They need present. They need truth wrapped in tenderness. And they need to see you live the things you say. So now when we walk past someone on the street, we don't rush. We slow down. Sometimes we smile. Sometimes we give. Sometimes we just notice. But always we acknowledge. Because that's the thing about kindness. It's not about fixing people. It's about refusing to pretend they're invisible. You don't need to donate your life savings or start a nonprofit. You just need to look. To teach your child that every human deserves to be seen. Especially the ones who are hurting. And I'll tell you this, your kid will carry that with them. One day, they'll be at school and notice the lonely kid at lunch. One day, they'll be in a group of friends and see someone getting teased. One day, they'll be the one to say, that's not right. And all of it will start with a walk past a man on the sidewalk that you didn't ignore. Let me be brutally honest with you, dad to dad. If you want to raise a kind human being, you have to be one in the places where it's hardest. Kindness to your boss? Easy. Kindness to your friends? Simple. Kindness to someone who smells bad, looks scary, and might not thank you? That's the real test. And your child is watching. Not just how you treat the homeless, but how you talk about them afterward. The tone in your voice. The jokes you don't make. The discomfort you don't turn into sarcasm. Your silence teaches just as much as your words. So teach well. Not perfectly. Not saintly. Just honestly and with heart. There's one more story I want to share. A few months ago, we were driving home late. Rain pouring. My son looked out the window and said, "That man doesn't have an umbrella." There was a guy at a bus stop soaked through. I was tired, hungry, in a hurry to get home, but I heard his voice, so I pulled over, gave the man the spare umbrella from the trunk. Didn't say much, just a nod, then got back in the car. My son didn't cheer, didn't clap. He just said, "That was nice," like it was normal, like that's just what people do. And that's when I knew it was working. Not because he copied me, but because he didn't think it was extraordinary. He thought it was expected. That's how you raise a kind kid. Not with lectures, but by making kindness the baseline. So next time your child sees someone on the street and their little voice asks, "Why?" don't run from it. Lean in, because that moment is your chance. Not to explain the whole world, just to plant a seed. And that seed might just grow into someone who changes it. You know what's funny? We spend so much time worrying about what kind of future our kids will have: school, jobs, health, money. But the one thing we often forget to shape is their compassion. And that's the one thing they'll need in every part of their life. I didn't always believe that. Back when I first became a single dad, I thought my job was survival. Keep a roof overhead, get meals on the table, don't screw it up too badly. Feelings, empathy, that all felt secondary, optional. Nice to have, not must have. But then I started watching how my son looked at people. Really looked. He doesn't glance and move on. He studies them, notices things, asks questions, feels things. And I realized if I wasn't careful, the world would teach him to shut that down, to look away, to pretend not to feel. And I didn't want that for him, because kind kids grow into kind adults. And kind adults change the world in quiet, steady ways. They're the ones who hold the elevator door open, who say thank you to the janitor, who help their friend through a breakup, or offer their seat on the train, or stand up for someone being mistreated, even if it makes things awkward. And you can trace all of that back to moments like these, moments on the sidewalk, outside the store, passing a person the world has forgotten. That's why this matters. Not just to feel good, not to pat ourselves on the back, but because these are the seeds. And look, I know it's hard. I've made all the mistakes. I've looked away when I should have leaned in. I've rushed when I should have paused. I've been the dad who says, just ignore it, because I didn't want to get into a messy conversation. But here's what I've learned. Your kid doesn't need a lecture. They need a witness. They need to see you show up, not just for them, for others, especially for those who can't ask. And I'm not talking about performative kindness. Not that let's film ourselves giving money to a stranger kind of thing. I mean the quiet stuff, the stuff that nobody sees, the stuff that feels awkward and small and maybe even invisible, but your child catches it. Like when you carry an extra pair of socks in your car, or when you stop to say, "Hey, I hope you're warm tonight," or even just when you respond with dignity, not pity. You know what else? You don't need to fix your child's sadness when they see someone hurting. That's not your job. Let them feel it. Let them feel a little bit broken. Let them feel confused. Let them ask, "Why does the world let this happen?" And then sit beside them in that ache. Say, "Yeah, it hurts. I don't understand it all either. But I'm glad you noticed." That means your heart's working. That sentence, that permission to feel, is more powerful than any textbook definition of empathy. Because here's the thing, a lot of adults walk around numb, disconnected. They've been trained to not feel, to shrug it off, to tell themselves, "It's not my problem." And where did they learn that? Maybe from their own parents, from those quiet sidewalk moments, the ones where no one said anything. No one stopped. No one explained. But you get to break that cycle. You get to teach your child that feelings are not a weakness, that noticing people is not a burden, that caring is not something to be ashamed of. You get to say with your life, "Yes, the world is messy, but we don't have to be. One day, your child will grow up and face situations you'll never see. Someone will cry in front of them. Someone will be left out. Someone will be in pain. And in that moment, they'll hear your voice. Not the exact words, not the lectures, but the tone. The way you looked at someone sleeping on the sidewalk. The way you treated the cashier when they messed up your order. The way you gave your last $5 to someone who needed it more than you did. That's what they'll remember. That's what will guide them. And I want to be clear here. Kindness isn't about being soft. It's about being strong enough to stay open. Even when it's easier to close off. Even when it's easier to protect yourself by pretending not to care. Being a single dad taught me that. Because there are days when I feel like I have nothing left. Like I've given all I can. Like my heart has been wrung dry. But then my kid does something so beautifully kind without being told, and I realize this is what I'm building. Not a perfect home. Not a flawless life. But a child who knows how to love in a world that's forgotten how. That's everything. So the next time your child looks at someone on the street and asks, why? Take a breath. And answer with your eyes. With your actions. With your heart. Because that's the lesson that sticks. That's the one they'll carry. Not just into adulthood, but into every room they enter. And one day, when they're older, they might tell their child, you know what my dad taught me? He taught me not to look away. There's one more story I need to tell you before we close. It's not dramatic. It didn't go viral. But it changed something deep in me, and maybe it will in you too. It was one of those dragging Tuesday evenings. I just picked up my son from school, both of us tired, both hungry. I remember I was in a rush, juggling groceries, mentally planning dinner, thinking about emails I hadn't answered. You know those nights when everything feels like too much. And then just outside the parking lot, we saw a man, sitting on the curb, barefoot, thin, holding a cardboard sign that simply said, hungry. I noticed him. I definitely noticed him. But I was on autopilot. I kept walking. And my son, who'd been quietly trailing behind me, suddenly stopped. Just stopped like he hit an invisible wall. He didn't say anything. He just turned around, walked back to the man, and said, do you like peanut butter? I froze. My heart clenched. I turned just in time to see my son dig into the grocery bag, pull out the jar we just bought, and hand it to him. No speech. No lesson. No prompting for me. Just a kid who saw someone and gave what he had. The man looked up, eyes kind of wet, and nodded slowly. He whispered, thank you, little man. My son just smiled and said, I hope it helps, then ran back to me like it was the most normal thing in the world. And in that moment, I felt like I'd been handed a mirror. Not the kind that shows you your face. The kind that shows you what kind of man your child sees you as. Because if my son could offer compassion without hesitation, maybe, just maybe, I've been doing something right. Or maybe he was doing it in spite of me. That's the scary part, right? That our kids are learning from everything. Even the stuff we think they don't notice. The things we mutter under our breath. The people we avoid. The moments we flinch away from. They're learning from the look in your eyes. From the silence between your words. So make those things count. Make them human. Make them soft in all the ways the world teaches boys not to be. Your child will face a million choices in their life. To speak or stay silent. To reach out or walk past. To carry the weight of another or pretend they didn't see it. And when those moments come, you won't be there. You can't be. But your presence will be. The way you taught them to kneel down and tie a friend's shoe. The way you made eye contact with someone others ignored. The way you let them cry in your arms without rushing to fix it. All of that becomes their compass. And listen, if you've messed this up before, it's okay. So have I. So has everyone. Kindness is not a switch you flip. It's a direction you face. It's a practice you come back to. Over and over and over again. Start now. Today. The next time your kids see someone struggling, don't brush past it. Pause. Let them notice. Let them feel. Let them care. then join them in that feeling. Not because you have to teach them something, but because maybe they're teaching you. They're reminding you what it means to be human, to soften, to see. And when you do that, when you stop trying to control every lesson and just start showing up as a man who sees people, you become the kind of father they'll never forget. Not the one with all the answers, not the one who always gets it right, but the one who showed them day by day that kindness is a choice you make. Not once, but every time. Even when you're tired. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when nobody's watching. That's the kind of father the world needs more of. That's the kind of father your child deserves. And if you're still here, still trying, still listening, still showing up, then guess what? You already are. Your child doesn't need a perfect father. They need one who chooses to stay.